I was late to my own engagement party, and nobody noticed. That should have told me something. Ethan. Grace caught my arm at the door, fixing my collar with 2 fingers. You look like you're heading into a board meeting, not celebrating our engagement. Old habits, I said. 16-hour days don't turn off because there's champagne. You're CFO of a billion-dollar company at 29. I think you're allowed 1 night. I kissed her forehead. 1 night. Inside, my father was holding court near the fireplace, glass in hand, telling the same story about my first board presentation at 19. I'd heard it 50 times. I still smiled like it was the first. There he is, my father said, waving me over. The future of coal industries. Only because nobody else wants the paperwork, I said, and the room laughed. That was my life. Predictable. Earned. Mine. Then my mother stood up, and the room went quiet before she even spoke. I knew that silence. It was the silence people give her because she doesn't ask for attention. She commands it without trying. I have something to say, she said, and her voice cracked on the first word. 26 years ago, before I married your father, I gave up a baby, a son. I never stopped thinking about him. Never stopped praying I'd see him again. My stomach dropped before my brain caught up. Last month, she continued, we found him. The doors opened, and a man walked in. Tall, dark-haired, a face that had pieces of my mother's in it if you squinted, the jaw, maybe the eyes. He wore a suit that fit too well for someone meeting his family for the first time. This is Daniel, my mother said, and she was already crying. My son. The room erupted. Applause. Gasps. Someone's champagne glass tipped over and nobody cared. I clapped too. I don't remember deciding to. My hands just did it. Ethan, my father said, pulling me forward. Come meet your brother. Daniel's handshake was firm. Practiced. I've heard a lot about you, he said. CFO already. Impressive. Welcome to the family, I said, and the words tasted strange in my mouth, like I was reading them off a card someone else wrote. Isn't this incredible? Grace whispered beside me, eyes shining. A whole brother you never knew about. Incredible, I repeated. My mother came to me next, still crying, and pulled me into a hug so tight I felt it in my ribs. Can you believe it, Ethan? My family is finally whole. Whole. I stood there being congratulated for a family that had just doubled in size, and all I could think was whole meant something had been missing, and nobody had ever told me that. I'm so happy, she said again, pulling back to look at me, tears still falling. Aren't you happy for me? Of course, I said. Of course I am. She smiled like I'd given her the answer she needed, and turned back to Daniel before I finished the sentence. I stood in the middle of the party I was supposed to be the center of, watching my mother cry tears she'd never cried for me, watching my father introduce his future to men who used to shake my hand first, watching Grace watch Daniel like he was a plot twist in a story she couldn't wait to read. Nobody looked at me twice. I picked up a champagne glass I didn't want and smiled for a photo I'd never look at again. Somewhere behind that smile, a door was closing. I just didn't know yet how many rooms were on the other side of it. Daniel had been in our lives for 3 weeks, and he already had a parking spot with his name on it. It's temporary, my father said, when I asked why the executive garage had a new sign. Until he settles in. Settles in where? He doesn't have a role yet. He will. Give it time, Ethan. I gave it time. I gave it dinners, board introductions, a guest room that stopped being called the guest room somewhere around week 2. Pass the potatoes? Daniel asked at Sunday dinner, like he'd been asking at that table his whole life. Here. I handed the bowl. You settling in okay? Better than I expected. Your parents have been incredible. He looked at my mother. Our parents. Her face lit up like he'd handed her the sun. He's a natural, my father said later, in his study, pouring 2 drinks and not offering me one. Sat in on the Meridian negotiation today. Asked sharp questions. What kind of questions? Questions that show he understands the business. Faster than I expected, honestly. He's been here 3 weeks. He's a coal, Ethan. It's in the blood. I didn't say what I wanted to say, which was that I'd spent 10 years learning that business, not 3 weeks of dinner conversation. I finished my drink instead. Grace found me on the balcony afterward. You've been quiet all night. Just tired. It's not tired. It's Daniel. She crossed her arms. You've barely given him a chance. I've given him a seat at Meridian. That's not a chance, that's a formality, and you know it. He's been here 3 weeks and he's already sitting in on 9-figure negotiations. I don't think that's a formality problem, Grace. I think it's a speed problem. He's family. Family doesn't need to earn a seat at the table. I earned mine. Nobody's saying you didn't. She softened, touched my arm. I just don't understand why you can't be happy for your mother. She got her son back. I know what she got back. Then act like it. I didn't answer that. I didn't know how to explain that the problem wasn't Daniel existing. It was watching everyone rearrange the furniture of our lives to make room for him, without asking if there was room to begin with. The next morning I found him in my father's office. Not the guest suite they'd given him. My father's office, standing at the window, looking out over the floor like he already owned it. "Morning," he said, turning around like he'd expected me. "Your dad's running late. Board call ran over. You're up here a lot. He's been showing me around. Figured I should understand the business if I'm going to be part of the family properly. Part of the family and part of the business aren't the same thing. Aren't they?" He smiled, easy, warm, the same smile that had every camera at that party eating out of his hand. "Everyone keeps telling me they're the same thing around here." "Who's everyone?" "Your dad. Mostly." He walked closer, hands in his pockets, casual. "You've been guarded with me, Ethan. I get it. Strange guy shows up, calls himself your brother. Everyone throws a party. Must be a lot to process." "It is. For what it's worth, I'm not trying to take anything from you." "Then why are you standing in my father's office at 8 in the morning?" Something flickered behind his eyes. Gone before I could name it. Not warmth. Not the easy smile. Something colder, measuring, like he was recalculating how much I'd noticed. "Curiosity," he said finally. "That's all. Right? You should trust me a little, you know? We're brothers. Blood doesn't make you my brother, Daniel. Time does. And we haven't had any." He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes this time. "Fair enough." He walked past me toward the door, and for just a second, he studied my face the way you'd study an opponent across a chessboard. Not a man meeting family for the first time, but someone counting my pieces. Then the smile came back, and he was gone. The boardroom had never felt that cold before. "Before we adjourn," my father said, "I want to formally propose a change to our succession plan." 16 faces turned toward him. Mine included, though I already knew what was coming. He told me an hour before the meeting, like a courtesy, like a warning shot. "As most of you know, my son Daniel has rejoined our family after 26 years apart. I'd like to propose him as heir apparent to the CEO position, effective upon my retirement." Silence. Then Harold Vance, the oldest board member, cleared his throat. "With respect, Richard, Daniel's been with the company 6 weeks. Talent doesn't run on a clock, Harold." "Neither does trust," Vance said. "We've been grooming Ethan for this seat for a decade. Ethan will stay on as CFO. This isn't a demotion. It's an expansion of leadership." I sat there, listening to my life get reorganized in the third person. "I'd like to say something," Daniel said, standing, hands folded, the picture of humility. "I know this is unusual. I haven't earned anyone's trust yet, and I don't expect it overnight. But I'd ask the board to consider giving me the chance to prove myself, the way Ethan was given that chance 10 years ago." It was a good line. Reasonable. Humble. I watched 3 board members nod along like he'd said something wise instead of something calculated. "Ethan," my father said, "do you have anything to add?" Every eye in the room turned to me. I could feel Grace's father, on the board himself, watching closest of all. "I've given this company 10 years, I said. Nights, weekends, deals that saved this business twice. I'm not going to stand here and beg for what I already earned. No one's asking you to beg, my father said. Then what are you asking me to do? Smile while my seat gets handed to a man who showed up 6 weeks ago. He's your brother, Ethan. He's a stranger with good manners. That landed hard. My mother, sitting near the back, flinched like I'd struck her. Vance called for the vote anyway. 9-7. Daniel, heir apparent. I didn't say another word. I just watched my father shake Daniel's hand, watched the room shift its weight toward him like water finding a new channel, and understood that 10 years could lose to 6 weeks if the right person felt guilty enough. Grace found me in the parking garage afterward. Ethan, wait. I don't want to talk about it right now. I know that was hard. Hard. I turned around. I lost the company I built my whole life around, in a room full of people who watched it happen and said nothing. You said nothing. What was I supposed to say? It's not my seat on the board. Your father was in that room. You could have called him. You could have said one word to me before the meeting instead of after. I didn't know what to say. You didn't try. She was quiet for a second too long. Daniel's not a bad person, Ethan. Maybe this is just how things are supposed to go. Supposed to go. I laughed, and it came out uglier than I meant it to. Do you hear yourself? I'm trying to keep peace in a family that's under enough strain. I need to ask you something, and I need a real answer. I made her look at me. If it came down to it, me or him, my future or the family's comfort, who do you choose? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at the ground. 3 seconds. 4, 5. Ethan, it's not that simple. That's not a no. It's not a yes or no question. It is exactly a yes or no question, Grace. You just don't like the answer you'd have to give. She didn't argue with that. She just stood there, arms wrapped around herself, silent, while I waited for words that weren't coming. I got in my car and left her standing in the garage. She didn't call after me. I already had my answer. I'd had it the moment she went quiet. Grace came to my apartment 3 days after the vote, and I knew before she said a word. Can I come in? You're already halfway through the door. She sat on the edge of the couch, not the middle, like she didn't plan on staying long. I've been thinking a lot about us. Don't. Ethan. I said don't. Just say it. She twisted the ring on her finger, my ring, like she was already trying to figure out how to give it back without making it a scene. I think we should end the engagement. For the family's sake. I said it before she could. That's the line, right? It's not that simple. You keep saying that. It's exactly that simple. You're choosing the side that's easier to stand on. I'm choosing peace. Do you know what it's like at every dinner now? Everyone tense. Everyone watching what they say around you. I lost my company, Grace. Forgive me for not smiling through dinner. That's not fair. None of this is fair. That's the point. I stood, needing distance. So this is it? 3 years. And you're returning the ring like a store item that didn't fit. She set it on the counter without looking at me. I still care about you. You have a strange way of showing it. She left without another word, and I stood there staring at the ring until the light outside went from gray to black. 2 weeks later, Sophia showed up at my door with her laptop already open. You need to see this before someone else shows it to you. See what? She turned the screen around. A photo, Grace and Daniel at some charity gala, her hand resting on his arm, both of them laughing at something just out of frame. When was this taken? 4 days ago. For days. 11 days after she handed me back a ring, for the family's sake. She was laughing on my brother's arm in front of cameras. There's more, Sophia said, hesitant. It's trending. People are calling it a fairy tale. From long-lost heir to leading man. And me. She didn't want to say it. I made her. They're calling you the spare who couldn't keep up. I laughed, short and humorless. Catchy. It's not funny, Ethan. No. It's efficient. 29 years building a life, and it takes one headline to erase it. My phone buzzed. My mother, *, we should talk about the optics of this. Maybe stay quiet on social media for now. *, optics. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "I'm sorry." Optics. "Everyone's gone quiet," I said. "My father hasn't called since the vote. My mother's worried about optics. Grace is holding my brother's arm at a gala 4 days after handing back my ring." "I haven't gone quiet," Sophia said. "You're the only one. That's because everyone else in your life is choosing what's comfortable, and comfortable right now means standing next to the guy the tabloids love, not the guy they've decided to feel sorry for. You make it sound simple. It is simple. It's just not kind." She closed her laptop. "People pick the version of loyalty that costs them the least. Your mother doesn't want headlines. Grace doesn't want to be the woman who stayed with the loser brother. Your father doesn't want the board asking questions. None of that is about you being wrong, Ethan. It's about you being inconvenient right now." Inconvenient. I turned the word over. It fit better than anything else anyone had called me in weeks. "You're not going to fix this by waiting for them to remember your side," Sophia said. "Nobody's coming to defend you. You're going to have to do that yourself." I looked at the ring still sitting on my counter, caught between the empty space where my company used to be and the empty space where my fiancé used to stand. "Then I will," I said. She didn't smile. She just nodded, like she'd been waiting 3 weeks for me to say exactly that. Victor Hahn's office took up the entire top floor of Hahn Dynamics, and his assistant made me wait 11 minutes before letting me in, long enough to know it was intentional. Ethan Cole. He didn't stand when I walked in. "I have to say, I didn't expect you to come to me. I didn't expect to be here. Sit." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Drink." "No." "Straight to business, then." "Good. I don't have patience for small talk from Coles." He leaned back. "Let me guess. Daddy handed your seat to a stranger, your girlfriend traded up, and you're here because you've run out of people on your side. How do you know all that?" "I make it my business to know things about companies I intend to compete with. And right now, Cole Industries is about to be run by a man who didn't exist 6 months ago." He slid a folder across the desk. "Daniel Cole. Born where?" "Exactly." I opened it. Empty birth records. Inconsistent school documents. A gap of 3 years nobody could account for. "This is incomplete," Victor said. "On purpose, I'd guess. Someone built him a past good enough to pass a family desperate to believe it, but not good enough to survive real scrutiny. My parents ran a background check." "Your parents ran the check your brother wanted them to run." He tapped the folder. "I've had people looking into him for 3 weeks. Long before you walked in here." "Why? What's he to you?" "Nothing yet, but your father is." 20 years ago, Richard Cole undercut a deal that should have made my company twice its size. I've been waiting for a crack in his empire ever since. He smiled, not unkindly. "You're the crack. I'm not here to help you get revenge on my father." "No," he agreed. "You're here because you want to know the truth about Daniel, and you don't have the money or the access to find it yourself anymore. I have both. And what do you want in return?" "Information. Once you're back inside that company, and you will be, because your father will need you the moment Daniel's mask starts slipping, you tell me what I need to know. Deals, numbers, board sentiment. In exchange, my resources are yours. My investigators, my lawyers, my patience. That's not a partnership. That's using me to burn my own family down. It's exactly a partnership. You want Daniel exposed. I want your father humbled. Our reasons are different. Our target isn't." He stood, walked to the window. "You didn't come here for comfort, Ethan. You came here because you're done being polite about what happened to you." I sat with that for longer than I meant to. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't. Trust isn't part of this deal. Usefulness is. I don't need you to like me, and I have no interest in liking you. I need you accurate, and you need me resourced. That's cleaner than most family relationships I've seen, including yours. That's a cold way to build a partnership. It's an honest one, which is more than your family's given you lately." I thought about the vote, about the ring on my counter, about my mother's text asking me to think about optics instead of asking if I was all right. "If I do this," I said, "I want to see everything you find, not a summary. Everything. Done." And if it turns out Daniel's exactly who he says he is, then you'll have wasted a few weeks confirming what everyone already believes, and you walk away. No harm. And if he isn't? Victor's smile sharpened. Then your family finds out the son they replaced you with was never really theirs to begin with. And you get to decide what happens next. He held out his hand. I looked at it for a long moment, thinking about every version of myself that would have refused. The son who followed rules, who waited his turn, who believed loyalty got returned eventually. None of those versions had gotten me anything but a parking spot given to someone else and a ring sitting cold on my kitchen counter. I shook his hand. "Welcome to the other side, Ethan," he said. I didn't feel like the good son anymore. I felt like someone finally done waiting to be chosen. Detective Ruiz's office smelled like burnt coffee and old paper, which felt about right for the work. "Victor said you're thorough," I said, sitting across from her cluttered desk. "Victor pays well for thorough." She pulled out a folder. "Your brother's got 3 years unaccounted for. 19 to 22. No school records, no employment, no address history. People don't just vanish for 3 years unless they don't want to be found. Or someone didn't want them found. That's the theory I'm chasing. I've got a name, a woman who worked at the adoption agency your mother used. Retired now. She's willing to talk. For a price. Whatever it costs." Victor already said the same thing. She almost smiled. "You two are an interesting pair." "We're not a pair. We're an arrangement." "Sure." She didn't look convinced. "Give me 2 weeks. I'll have something concrete or I'll tell you there's nothing to find." "There's something to find." "How do you know?" "Because he watches me like he's still figuring out how much I know. People who belong somewhere don't watch that carefully." That night, family dinner. I walked in wearing the face I'd practiced in the mirror. Tired, resigned, defeated. The face of a man who'd stopped fighting. "Ethan." My father almost looked surprised to see me smile at Daniel. "Good to see you two getting along." "Nothing to be done about the vote now," I said. "No sense holding a grudge." Daniel studied me a beat too long, same as always. "Glad to hear that. I know this hasn't been easy on you. Life goes on." I took my seat. "Besides, you've got the harder job now. CO's a lot more headache than CFO. I'm managing." He smiled, but something behind his eyes recalibrated. Like he was recategorizing me from threat to non-issue. Good. That's exactly where I wanted to sit. Lena caught me in the kitchen afterward, refilling water glasses. "You've been weird tonight." "Weird how?" "Nice. To Daniel." "You're never nice to Daniel. People change. People don't change that fast." She lowered her voice. "Can I tell you something? You have to promise not to make a big deal out of it." "I promise." "Daniel told me last week he went to Lincoln High, but 2 months ago he told Mom he went to some private school in Denver. I only remember because I was doing a project on Denver for geography. I kept my face calm, careful. Probably just misspoke. That's what I thought. But then I asked him about it, casually, and he got weird. Changed the subject fast. Maybe it's nothing." "Maybe." She chewed her lip. "You don't think it's nothing, do you?" I could see it in her face. She wanted permission to keep noticing, and she wanted someone to tell her she wasn't crazy for noticing. "I think," I said carefully, "that if something feels off to you, you shouldn't just ignore it because everyone else has decided not to look." "Should I tell Mom?" "Not yet. She's not ready to hear it, and you don't have enough yet for her to believe you over him." I touched her shoulder. "But keep paying attention. You've got good instincts, Lena. Better than most people at this table." She looked relieved, like she'd been carrying that thought alone for weeks. "You believe me?" "I believe you noticed something real." She nodded, satisfied, and went back to the dining room. I stood alone in the kitchen for a moment, thinking about how easy it had been. Not lying to her, exactly, just not telling her everything. Letting her curiosity do what my questions couldn't do without drawing attention. My phone buzzed. Ruiz. Asterisk found the woman from the agency. Meeting set for Thursday. Asterisk. I texted back one word. Good. Behind me, I could hear Daniel laughing at something my father said. Easy and warm. completely unaware that the crack Lena had noticed was about to become a lot harder to explain away. Ruiz called me before I'd finished my coffee. "You need to come in. Now." Her office looked the same, but her face didn't. Tighter, careful. Like she was handing me something she wasn't sure I wanted. "The woman from the agency talked," she said. "Her name's Patricia Osei. She confirmed something I didn't expect. Tell me, Daniel isn't your mother's son. Never was. There's no biological match, no adoption record that leads back to your family. He was recruited." The word sat wrong in my chest. Recruited by who? Someone who had access to your family's private history. Medical records, adoption paperwork, even personal details only a handful of people would know. Your mother's exact hospital, the date, details she never made public. That's privileged information. Legal information. Exactly. Ruiz slid a document across the desk. "This is a records access log. Someone pulled your mother's sealed adoption file 8 months ago. One name on that log." I looked down. Marcus Okafor, our family lawyer. The man who'd known me since I was 7 years old. I didn't call Victor. I didn't call my father. I drove straight to Okafor's office and walked past his assistant without waiting to be announced. "Ethan." He stood too fast, knocking a folder off his desk. "I wasn't expecting. You pulled my mother's sealed adoption file 8 months ago." His face went the color of old paper. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't." I set the log on his desk. "I have this. I have a woman from the agency confirming Daniel isn't biologically related to us. I have a paper trail with your name on it. What I don't have is a reason yet. So give me one." He sat down slowly, hands shaking. "You don't understand what you're involved in. Then explain it to me." "I had debts. Bad debts. A man came to me 18 months ago, said he could make them disappear if I helped him with one thing. Access to sealed family records. I told myself it was harmless. Old paperwork. I didn't know what he'd use it for." "You didn't ask?" "I didn't want to know." His voice cracked. "Then Daniel showed up and I understood. He used everything, the birth date, the hospital, your mother's own words from a journal entry she wrote years ago and never showed anyone. He built a person out of your family's most private grief." "Who paid you?" "I don't have a name. Just an account number, wire transfers, a voice on the phone." He looked up, and something close to terror crossed his face. "Is this Victor Hahn's doing? Are you working with him?" "Why does that matter?" "Because men who work with Victor Hahn don't stay quiet about what they find. Ethan, if this gets out, I lose my license, my career, maybe worse. You should have thought about that 18 months ago. Please." His composure cracked completely. "I've known you since you were a child. I never wanted your family hurt. I just needed the debts gone. You handed a stranger the keys to my mother's worst grief, so he could wear it like a costume. That's not a debt problem, Marcus. That's a soul problem." He put his head in his hands. "What do you want from me?" "Everything. Every record, every wire transfer, every email. Give me the trail back to whoever hired you, and I decide what happens to you after that. And if I don't, then I let Victor Hahn's lawyers find it instead, and I promise you, they won't offer you a choice." He was quiet for a long moment, and then he reached into his desk drawer with trembling hands and pulled out a second folder, thicker than the first. "This is everything," he said. "God help me. This is everything." I took it without a word, and for the first time since the vote, I felt something besides loss. I felt the first piece of ground shifting back under my feet. Grace showed up at my apartment without calling first, which she never used to do. "I need to talk to you," she said. "Please." I stepped aside and let her in. Not because I wanted her there, but because I was curious what 6 weeks of dating my brother had done to her. "You look tired," I said. "I am tired." She sat on the couch, the same spot she'd sat when she gave the ring back. "Things have changed. With Daniel." "Changed how?" "He's different now. Colder. He used to ask my opinion about things. Now he just tells me how things are going to be." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Last week I disagreed with him about something small, a dinner reservation of all things, And he looked at me like I challenged him in a board meeting. He's becoming CEO. People change when they get power. This feels like more than that. She looked up at me. He controls who I talk to now. Checks my phone. Gets angry if I'm late replying to texts. I didn't see it happening until I was already inside it. And you came here to tell me this because? Because I don't have anyone else who'd understand. Her voice cracked. And because I need to say I'm sorry. For everything. The ring, the vote, all of it. You picked comfort, Grace. You picked the version of your life that came with less risk. I know. You didn't just leave me. You left me publicly right after I lost everything, and then you were photographed on his arm 11 days later. Do you know what that did? Every headline, every whisper, every pitying look from people I used to negotiate with. That's what your comfort cost me. I didn't think about it that way at the time. That's the problem. You didn't think about me at all. You thought about which version of the family you wanted to stand next to when the dust settled. She was crying now, quiet, careful tears, like she didn't feel she'd earned the loud kind. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I just needed you to know I see it now. I see what I did. Seeing it now doesn't undo what it cost me then. I sat across from her, keeping my voice level, because I didn't want this to be the kind of moment either of us could misremember later as a fight. You want me to tell you it's okay. That regret erases what happened. It doesn't work that way, Grace. Some choices don't get a second draft. So there's nothing I can do? You can be honest with yourself about why you're really here. Is it guilt over what you did to me? Or fear about what you've gotten yourself into with him? She didn't answer right away, and that silence told me everything her words hadn't. Both, she finally admitted. That's what I thought. I stood, walked to the door, and opened it. Not cruelly, just clearly. I hope you get out of whatever you're in with him. I mean that, but I'm not the place you come to feel better about what you did to get there. She stood slowly, wiping her face. I really am sorry, Ethan. I believe you. It just doesn't change anything. She walked past me into the hallway, pausing at the threshold like she wanted to say something else, then thought better of it. I closed the door behind her and stood there for a long moment, waiting to feel something. Anger, satisfaction, grief. What I felt instead was quiet, steady, like a wound that had finally stopped bleeding, even if the scar was still there. I picked up my phone and texted Ruiz. Any update on the wire transfer trail? Grace's regret was hers to carry now. I had a family to finish exposing. The boardroom filled slowly, 16 chairs and one folder sitting in front of my seat like a loaded gun. Emergency session, Harold Vance said, glancing at me. You called this, Ethan. What's this about? It's about the truth, I said. Something this board deserves before it finishes handing my brother a company. Daniel's eyes flicked to me from across the table, calm on the surface, but I caught the same recalculation I'd seen in my father's office 3 months earlier. Ethan, my father said, if this is about the succession vote again, it's not about the vote. It's about who you voted for. I opened the folder. 6 months ago, my mother's sealed adoption file was accessed by our family lawyer, Marcus Okafor, without her knowledge, without yours. My mother straightened. That's not possible. Marcus has been our lawyer for 20 years. I have his confession. I slid copies down the table. He was paid to leak private details, hospital records, a private journal entry, dates nobody outside this family knew. Someone used that information to build a person who could pass as your son. This is absurd, Daniel said, standing. You're accusing me of what, exactly? Being coached into existing? I'm saying you're not biologically related to this family. At all. I looked at Ruiz's report, then at my mother. I have a statement from the woman who worked at the adoption agency. There's no record match. There never was. The room went silent in a way I'd never heard a boardroom go silent before. That's a lie, my mother said, but her voice had lost its certainty. I felt it. The moment I saw him, I felt it. You felt what you wanted to feel, I said, as gently as I could manage in a room full of witnesses. Because you'd been grieving that loss for 26 years, and someone built a person specifically designed to fill it. Ethan, my father started. Ask him, I said, nodding at Daniel. Ask him what school he went to. He told Lena 2 different answers. Ask him about the 3 years between 19 and 22 that don't exist on paper anywhere. Daniel's jaw tightened. This is a smear campaign. He lost the vote and now he's trying to buy his way back with lawyers and private investigators. I have wire transfer records, I said. Money moving from an account linked to you into Okafor's debts, timed exactly with the file access. You didn't get lucky finding this family, Daniel. You bought your way in. That's enough, my father said. But he wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at Daniel, and something in his face was breaking apart in real time. Is any of this true? Daniel didn't answer right away, and in a room built on negotiations, silence was its own confession. I needed a family, Daniel finally said. Quiet now, the practiced humility gone. You have no idea what it's like to have nothing. I saw an opportunity and I took it. Is that so different from what any of you do in this boardroom every day? It's exactly different, my father said, and his voice cracked in a way I'd never heard before. You let my wife believe her son had come home. You let me hand you a company built by a man who actually earned it. My mother made a sound I'd never heard her make. Something between a sob and a scream, and then she was crying, really crying, the kind of grief I'd seen once before, on the night she announced Daniel's return, except this time it wasn't joy closing a door on me. It was loss reopening one she thought had finally healed. Get him out of this building, my father said to security, voice flat, final. Get him out, and get every lawyer we have on retrieving what he's taken. Daniel looked at me one last time as they let him out. Not angry, not pleading, just calculating. Like he was already working out his next move somewhere else. You did well, Victor said quietly, the only outsider in a room full of family, once the doors closed behind them. Better than I expected. We're done, aren't we? We were only ever going to get this far together. He extended his hand. I meant what I said. Trust was never part of the deal. But you were accurate and you were useful. That's more than I can say for most people I work with. I shook his hand once, and that was it. No warmth, no false promise of friendship. Just 2 people who'd used each other well enough to both walk away satisfied. My father found me afterward, in the hallway outside the boardroom, looking older than I'd ever seen him. I should have believed you, he said. From the beginning. You believed what you needed to believe. Will you take the seat back? The board will vote for you unanimously now. I thought about it, the seat, the title, the years I'd spent earning it. No, I said. He looked at me, confused. Why not? Because that seat was never really about the company. It was about being chosen. And I don't need this family to choose me anymore. I looked past him, toward the elevator, toward Sophia waiting by the doors, toward Lena standing quietly beside her. The only 2 people who'd never once needed convincing. I'm going to build something of my own, with people who picked me before they had any reason to. He didn't argue. Maybe, for the first time, he understood. I walked out of that boardroom without the title I'd spent 10 years earning, and for the first time in months, it didn't feel like losing anything at all.